Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, resilience, crises, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Today, I'd like to welcome back a guest who's been here 3 times, not including webinars and guest spots on live broadcasts, but the head of resilience at Uber Technologies, Margaret Millett. Margaret, it's so good to have you back.
Alex, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you. I only wish that we could be doing it live and at a table, each having a cup of coffee.
One day.
Yes.
So, we're always crossing paths at a conference somewhere. So
yes, that is true.
Now, I know it's your third appearance, but it has been a while. So could you take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got into what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Alex. I've been doing business continuity. Next year will be the start of my 30th year in the profession. And I am also one of those people who fell into this profession by accident. Got asked to help support an office move for a company that I work for in Boston, Massachusetts. Put together the continuity plan. I was doing something else. And then about 6 months later, there was an opening for this job thing called business continuity. I read the job description. I'm like, I can do that. And I applied and never looked back. And I've been having an amazing career doing it for mostly financial companies that I were based in Massachusetts. And then I worked at eBay and MetLife, and now I'm at Uber. And I've also just been really involved in the profession, whether it be working with DRI, DRJ, BCI, et cetera, really trying to help promote the profession for everybody around the globe to make sure that we are all singing from the same sheet of music on how to do business continuity management globally.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And you and I have actually done things together.
Yes, I love collaborating with you.
We did a keynote at the BCI conference last year in London, England. This year, we're part of a panel at the same conference, and fingers crossed, we might get to speak next year at another conference together.
That is true. Time will tell.
Yeah. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So we've got a couple of topics we're going to talk about today, but the first one we're going to talk on is something a little different because it does still have impact on our industry. And I know as part of what you do, I hope I remember the title right, Vice Chair of the Business Continuity Women and Resilience Committee.
You got it right.
Okay. So I'd like to talk about DEI because it seems to be appearing everywhere now. And sometimes not in the best of lights, but we'll get to that. Could you tell us what DEI really is?
Sure. So first off, I wanted to state for the audience, Alex, I am not an expert on DEI. So, please don't quote me chapter and verse on what I'm saying. Some of this is just based on my own research or what I feel it should be to help support business continuity or an organization. To me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is making sure that we have diversity in our workforce and that we are making sure that everybody has the right seat at the table and the right tools in order to go do their job. And I live in the United States, and so I'm going to just touch upon the fact that at the end of June, the United States Supreme Court did make a decision that could impact corporate DEI programs in the future. Not sure where that's going to go. But I do think that we should stop and take a look at the fact that 2 years ago, chief diversity officers were some of the hottest hires for executives out, not only in the United States, but I truly believe globally. And now I kind of feel like they've been pushed aside. I know some large companies, and I'm not going to name their names, have really said that diversity, equity, and inclusion executives may be losing their jobs. And that could really impact the workforce in the years to come if they don't have DEI, because I do think that, for example, when you're hiring new people, you should ensure that you have a diverse candidacy pool when you're looking at the potential new hires, and so that there is no bias on who you're hiring. And I think the other thing, Alex, that people really need to take into account is that old saying that great minds think alike. I don't think that saying is true anymore. I think that great minds don't think alike. You get so much more when you look at having people even from different parts of your own country. I live in the Northeast, if you get, or the South, but I'm from the Northeast. If you get people from the Midwest or the Southwest or the North, the West, excuse me, my coffee's still kicking in, Alex. You're going to have a different lens on how they're seeing things. And so then when you take this globally, when you're working for a large organization, somebody's going to look at something differently from Latin America versus APAC. So that's what I'm saying. It's very important to make sure that we have that diversity in our workforce.
Well, that diversity does a couple of things. One, I think it helps improve the operations of an organization because it will provide perspectives and viewpoints that you wouldn't normally see if everybody was the same.
Right.
At the same time, as an outsider, I'm a partner or a potential client or a customer. Then if I'm have a different religion, or I look different, or I think differently, I then could be attracted to you and your product because I know you're taking into account a different perspective and you're actually opening yourself up to a bigger market.
Very true. And I think that's another thing that, really needs to be looked at, as when you do have diversity and you're talking about new product development and marketing efforts and the current events that are impacting on how workers and consumers are feeling, it does make you stop and say, like, gee, I never thought of that. Because I remember a classic when I took a marketing class in college, which was just yesterday, of course, Alex. They were talking about the Chevy Nova, and the executives were just not understanding why that car was not doing well in Latin America. It was doing great elsewhere, but they didn't realize that Nova in Spanish means no go. And probably if they had had a diverse marketing team back in the 50s or the 60s, 70s, whenever the car came out, somebody would have said, hey, that's a great name for a car, but you better go change it for something else in Latin America, because nobody's going to buy a car that says no go. So,
but funny story, when we were kids, my mom used to have a Chevy Nova. So thankfully it did go.
Yes.
So why do you think I'm not going to hold you to this, and if anyone is offended, too bad. But in your opinion, why do you think suddenly there's pushback on DEI? Is it fear? I don't understand. Inclusion is great. It's wonderful. Meeting different people, learning from different people. I see no negative whatsoever with it. So what could possibly be causing any kind of pushback?
Again, I can't speak for the C-suite at organizations, but I think it's one, Alex, of that there is more time, money, and resources to go support a program. You've already been doing interviewing, etc. When you get the resumes in, and do you need to make sure that you understand what somebody's background is, or do you just look at the resume, interview them, and go say, yes, I want to just go hire that person, but without looking at, again, the diversity? I think that, again, there's extra steps when you have to go do that. And again, all organizations are still trying to be lean and mean and make a profit. And also, unfortunately, right now, the economy is not strong in many parts of the world. And so therefore, I know that I have friends that are in human resources, and regardless of what kind of role you have, there's been a huge shaving of the human resources department, no matter what kind of role they are in. And so I think that's one of those of like, hey, do we really need this? Therefore, let's see if we can get by without having that, because I do think that a lot of chief diversity officers have lost their jobs. And again, it's one of those where it's not like you lose your job and you can go to another company. I think that's a profession that could be one of those where it's going to be a challenge to say who's got a chief diversity officer title or works in the diversity office anywhere going forward. So I don't know. I do think it's the right thing to do because, a lot of companies are trying to be socially responsible and everything. And when they do issue their ESG reports, that is one thing that they will talk about. So it will be interesting to read those reports in the future, Alex, to see how they handle that, if they do or do not have the diversity seat at the C-suite. When I was talking about companies that were thinking of eliminating that role, these were some big name companies, at least based here in the United States.
Yeah, you bring up two interesting points that I touched on. Reviewing resumes, they're kind of related here. It's happened to me when I've submitted for a role or a contract somewhere that artificial intelligence tends to pick out specific words in a resume. Let's say project management as an example. Mm-hmm. I have project management skills, but I don't ever want to be an actual only project manager. But I still get notices about that. And with the other piece you mentioned with HR not being there now, is there reliance on AI to kind of pick out all these different skills, which then doesn't take into account the diversity aspect of it?
Yeah, I don't know how AI works in the human resources world. I've read a few articles, and I'm going to just say it, Alex, it's a little scary to me. I don't think that it's fine-tuned. And I still always say that, the artificial intelligence will only be good as the person who programmed it. I'm going to diverse for a moment. I was with a group of women on Sunday who are professors at a local university here in North Carolina. And, they were talking about, artificial intelligence as it comes to writing papers. And they said that, they can tell sometimes, it's like all of a sudden you see this writing style of somebody, it's steady, even, and then it goes like this. And that's when they're then taking those types of papers that seem like it's a huge change in your writing style, running it through. And then, they also said, how do they know sometimes when they put something in, like how to get the right thing? For example, if you just put in, say, Mary Jones or Mark Miller, well, that's going to pop up with lots of people with that name. How do you know you need to go after the one that was the scientist or the poet? And if you pick the wrong one, well, of course, you screwed the pooch, no pun intended, because you wrote the paper about the wrong person.
Yeah. What about personal biases with DEI? Do you think that tends to come in, people that really maybe don't understand DEI or not involved with it, and without them knowing, biases can kick in? Because I know biases has come up quite a bit when we talk about business continuity and resilience and, expectations and things like that. So just wondering, do you think biases sometimes play a part with this?
I'm going to say probably yes, meaning I can't speak for everyone, but I do, I try and look at the world as, we're all different. But I'm sure that when some people are looking at things, they look at it of like, I'm looking for the following and I need this. Therefore, I've got to check all the boxes. Therefore, I've got to say this. Yes, this is it. Because, I look at frequently sometimes when I'm interviewing people, I'm not necessarily looking for somebody that's got the business continuity certifications or the experience, because I can train you on that. I'm looking at like, what's your thought process, your technical skills, or your project management, or your presentation skills. Because again, I can go get you certified through DRI, BCI, or ICOR, or something like that. And I can teach you based on, here, let me tell you how to go do a risk assessment or a BIA, or put together a plan, and in time, how to go run an exercise. So I do think that that's still always going to be a factor. Or sometimes even when you're just looking at resumes, sometimes there are still traditional Black colleges in the United States, Hispanic colleges. So therefore you start to look at the resume, see where somebody's from. Are you automatically assuming their ethnic background? There are also religious schools. So, you start and you look at all that, but just because you might go to a religious school doesn't mean you're of that faith. You might have gotten a great scholarship there, and therefore you decided to go there because it was the best way for you to economically afford to be able to go to school. So you just don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add or comment on when it comes to DEI?
So yeah,
even in just our industry, the resilience industry.
Yeah, I want to just say this. Like, I think that we need to look at DEI as like I'm going to talk a little bit about, the economics and social benefits of diversity are inextricably tied to the idea that every individual experiences the world through a different set of lenses. And that research, again, I'm not quoting anybody, I'm just saying things I've read. Research has shown that diverse organizations are better able to empathize and understand and appreciate how their actions are going to affect their stakeholders and will interact within the company. And I think the other thing, Alex, is bringing an individual with a different life experience to the workplace can mean exposure to new skill sets, new ideas, both of which can give companies a very distinctive competitive advantage. And also, regardless of what profession you're in, whether you're in, manufacturing or customer service or healthcare, whatever, I just think that when you have different people weighing in on new products and things, that's going to just really help your workers and make sure that you're understanding how your consumers might interpret something that you're going to bring to the market.
Yeah, and your example earlier about the Chevy Nova.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would seem so obvious, that some, a car that's named, no go, would catch someone's attention, but no,
Yeah.
makes it all the way to market and, can't figure out why it's not selling. I think that's kind of funny.
Well, and one last thing, Alex, I know we're getting tight on time, but I do think that regardless of what's happening, that companies do need to stop and think about DEI when they're onboarding people, new hires. DEI will have different meanings based on where you are in parts of your country or parts of the world, and that you can't make the assumption that everybody's ready for these conversations in the workplace. They might not understand what it really means, and therefore maybe employers still need to spend some time with new hires and tell them how DEI, what it is to that organization and how it can really help them understand how it matters to the organization and how it's going to be implemented and followed at that company.
That's an interesting point. When we're talking about DEI, one size does not fit all.
Correct.
Like one model. It's different. It's like resilience. What does it mean to your organization?
Yeah. So that's where I'm also just saying, it's a world of uncertainty right now in the DEI space. So I do encourage, corporate leaders to not just hit the delete button, but maybe hit the pause button and make sure that they're understanding what they want DEI to mean to them, their organization, get their way in on their leadership team, their board, and make sure that whatever they're doing is going to continue to align with particular laws in which they might have to abide to and aligns with what they want their organizational values to be and the benefits, not only to their business, but to their employees. Because again, without having your employees backing you, they are your number one asset. If you want your business to be successful, you've got to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your employees, because these are the types of things that matter to some employees. And if they feel that they're not going to be able to check that box, they might leave your organization.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking the same thing, that, if you're not focusing on DEI, looking outwards, trying to bring people in, well, then you're ignoring the people that are already in, right, that are diverse themselves and are going to see you, leadership or whoever, as, well, you're not very diverse. I'm not sure I'm comfortable staying here anymore.
Right. And that also gets down to, that could be even a red flag on your round of interviewing. If you're interviewing with people that are all looking the same and there's no diversity, or you look at the board positions online. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet, is you can find out more about the company because it'll have the executive leadership team. It'll have the board of directors potentially. So if you start and look and see, it's like, there's no diversity here. Do I even want to go work for this company?
Yeah, I thought we were going to end a few minutes ago, but you've brought up some interesting points here, which is great, which is why I love talking with you all the time, because it always happens between us.
Yeah.
The point you made that one size does not fit all, that tends to happen a lot with business continuity. It becomes a checkbox exercise or resilience. We got this, tick box, tick box, tick box. And then a year or two later, you try to do a big scale exercise, or you experience a real situation and nothing works. It all falls apart. The same thing, I think, can happen with DEI, to your point. You haven't defined what it really means to your organization, just as though you didn't define what business continuity or resilience means in your organization, which is why it falls apart at that point. And you really need to stop. And I like how you phrase it, pause and take a look and define it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, the dust isn't settled. So therefore, I think that you've got to figure out what it is. And like I said, just because certain things are changing doesn't mean you need to jump on that bandwagon, that you can stop and say, this is what I want for my company, for my employees, as long as you feel it's the right thing to do. And again, you're going to continue to still win. and also do what's right so that it's not impacting your bottom line. I know that a very large retail company here in the United States had some poor sales due to a decision that they made during Pride Month here in the United States in June. And again, I wonder if the executive leadership team is now saying, was that the right thing to do or not? I don't know. I don't work at that company, and time will tell what they do next year during Pride Month.
Yeah, and then that, I guess that's a perspective you also have to take into account at some point, is what are other people thinking of how we're managing it,
Right.
How we're looking at it, because you're doing the right thing, but let's face it, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like what you're doing.
Right.
No matter what it is you're doing, there's always somebody who's not right.
Right.
So, any final thoughts, Margaret, on DEI?
I guess, like I said, Alex, I really do think organizations do need to look at DEI. They've got to still have it. They need to solve business challenges, meaning giving every employee across the organization the tools that they're going to need to continue to create a more collaborative, creative, and operational strong workplace. And we need to continue to ensure that teams are outcome driven and will be prepared to serve complex challenges for the organization and build success in the future. And I really think the only way that's going to happen is through a diverse workforce.
Yeah, and let's face it, the world is changing. People are moving all over the place.
Yeah,
there's no way you could not escape diversity. It's in our neighborhoods. It's in every store you walk into. It's it is a part of life. It's not a thing that that it is happening, a fad or something.
No,
it's a fact of life. You walk down the street, you meet people from literally all around the world. That's a diverse neighborhood.
Yeah, it's not like before. This was this section, that was that section. It's like we're blended now.
Yeah.
I look at it just even in my time of going to the grocery store. Before it was just the pasta. Well, now we got an international aisle now in most grocery stores because we all eat different kinds of foods, and it's part of our daily life now.
Yeah, there's a large retailer, the largest retailer, shall I say? I won't say their name, but if at least the one here in my city in Guelph, Ontario, there's an aisle dedicated to British food, German food, Indian food, Chinese food, and a couple of others. And I love going down that aisle because there's so many different things that, wow, I never saw that before. That looks good. Let me try this.
Yeah, or you go down that aisle when it's holiday time for that country. It's like, oh, what new things? Like that's like Oktoberfest will be happening, so you'll see the strudels and the Wiener Schnitzel and the German cookies and things, and the German beers. So it's like, we embrace it.
And my favorite, all the English chocolate that all of a sudden appears on the shelves. Margaret, great chatting with you. Thank you so much. I hope this really gives some food for thought for some people out there who are maybe struggling with DEI or unsure of what it is, or how to manage it. So I really appreciate your comments. I knew with you being on the BCI Women in Resilience Committee, you would be able to provide us some great insights, and you did. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Alex. Talk to you soon.
Great. And to everyone watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.